Grade 8, hello, this is video 2. So in the last video we revised deca and deci. Now we're going to move on to converting area and volume. So we're going to be working from page 18 of your notes. The formulas that you see over here should be very familiar to you from last year, because I'm sure you would have done surface area of a rectangle, a square and a triangle. So the formula for the area of a square is just length times breadth. If you've seen a formula, area equals to length squared or length times length, that's fine too for a square. But if you write length times breadth, that's perfectly fine. It's the same as the formula for a rectangle. Area equals length times breadth. Then you've also seen the formula for the area of a triangle. Where that actually comes from is if you had a rectangle, the formula for the area of a rectangle we just said is length times breadth. If you were to cut it in half, and I'll shade half. If you cut it in half, then the area of that shaded half, which is actually a triangle, would be a half times length times breadth, because you've got half of a rectangle. So that's where that comes from. Okay, you will need to know these formulas. We won't give them to you, but I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure that you know them already. If you're given surface area though, and you need to convert between different units, you need to do the conversion first before you work out what the surface area is. So over here we've got a square, the one side is 50, the other side is 50. 50 centimeters. 50 centimeters and 50 centimeters. So if we were asked to calculate the area of the square in centimeters, then it's really easy. We don't need to do any conversions. So let's do that. So in centimeters, area, we always write down formula first. Area equals to length times breadth. The length is 50. I can write centimeters if I want to, I don't have to. 50 centimeters by 50 centimeters. And 50 times 50, if you work that out on your calculator, will be 2,500. And because we're working in centimeters, just like in maths, if you've got x times x, that will be equal to x squared. So a centimeter times a centimeter will be equal to a centimeter squared. Okay, let's do the same for the rectangle. So the rectangle in centimeters, area equals to length times breadth. The length of the rectangle is 10 centimeters. The breadth of the rectangle is 5 centimeters. And 10 times 5, guys, is 50 centimeters squared. The area is 50 centimeters squared. The 3 dots just mean therefore. Okay. Let's also do the triangle in centimeters squared. So a triangle is half of a rectangle, so the area of a triangle is equal to a half times the base times the perpendicular height. By perpendicular height, what we're actually saying is this height over here, because the height is perpendicular to the base. It's a 90-degree angle to the base. So this little square means that we've got a 90-degree angle. Okay, so the two blue lines are perpendicular to each other. So half times base times the height of the triangle. So that's equal to half. The base is 14 centimeters long. And the height of the triangle is 4.5 centimeters long. Base is 14 centimeters. Times the height, which is 4.5 centimeters. And a half times 14 times 4,5 will give us a surface area of 31.5. And because we've taken a centimeter and multiplied it by a centimeter, we're going to end up with units of centimeters squared. Okay. So that was easy. That you could have done last year already. Let's write down the area of our square in meters squared. So if I were to take a centimeter and I wanted to convert it to a meter, we're going from a small unit to a big unit because centimeters are smaller, meters are bigger. So to do that, you would have to divide by 100 so that you've got fewer of the bigger unit. So 50 over 100 will give us 0.5 meters. And of course, if the one side is 50 and the other side is 50, then they'll both be 0.5 meters each. So 0.5 meters, 0.5 meters. And now we're ready to calculate our area. So area, you write down the formula again, equals to length times breadth. The length was 50 centimeters, but because they're asking us to write it in units of square meters, we need to convert to meters first. So it's going to be 50 over 100. And because we've divided by 100, now our units are meters. That's the length. Then the breadth, I'm going to write it in brackets, 50 over 100 meters. Be very careful on your calculator when you do this. You have to open your bracket. Then you're going to type 50 divided by 100, close your bracket. Then you're going to write down this multiplication sign. Then you're going to open a bracket, then 50 divided by 100, or if you want to use the fraction button, that's fine. Then close your brackets, and only then can you press equals. If you don't, your calculator might not do the BODMAS for you, and it might say 50 divided by 100 times 50. And obviously, what you're actually telling your calculator to do then is this. 50 divided by 100 times 50. So it's very important to type it out exactly as you see it. So open bracket, 50 divided by 100, close bracket, times, open bracket, 50 over 100, or 50 divided by 100, close bracket, and then only can you press equals. And if you've done that all correctly, you're going to get, this is actually what your calculator is going to be doing, is 0.5 times 0.5, because 50 over 100 is 0.5 meters, and that's going to give us 0.25 square meters, because you've got a meter times a meter, which will give us a square meter. Now I want you to notice something. Ordinarily, if we were to convert centimeters, let's do it the other way. If we were to convert centimeters into meters, how would you convert centimeters to meters? You would normally divide by 100. Divide by 100. Now if you take 2,500 and you divide it by 100, do you get 0.25? You actually get 25. So if I just took 2,500 and I wanted to convert my answer into meters, you cannot just divide by 100, because if you did, you'd get 25, and 25 is not the same as 0.25. So when you're dealing with surface area, you actually have to convert twice. So if I wanted to go from 2,500 centimeters squared and convert that to meters squared, you actually have to divide by 100 twice. So divide by 100, divide by 100. So I'm going to change this. So if you've got centimeters squared to meters squared, you're going to divide by 100 squared. You can also go divide by 100, divide by 100, because divide by 100, and if you divide by 100 again, it's the same as just dividing by 100 squared. So make a little note of that. Alright, pause the video if you need to, if you need some more time. When you're ready, then continue. We're going to convert centimeters squared into millimeters squared. So this is the last column that you see over here. Okay. So our formula will be area equals to length times breadth, still again. Originally we had 50 centimeters. To convert 50 centimeters into millimeters, you're going from a big unit to a small unit, so you would need to multiply. So 50 times by 10 would give us 500 millimeters. So 50 centimeters is the same as 0.5 meters, which is the same as 500 millimeters. And of course this side would be the same. Okay, so we had 50 centimeters, 50 centimeters, and if we want to convert the centimeters to millimeters, you're going to times by 10, and that's going to be in millimeters, and you're going to do the same for the other side, for the breadth, 50 times by 10 to give us an answer of millimeters. Right, 50 times 10 is 500. And 500 times 500 is going to be 250,000 square millimeters. Remember, a millimeter times a millimeter is going to be a millimeter squared. Now, if I asked you when you were in grade 7 to convert millimeters to centimeters, I'm sure you would have just divided by 10. And that would be right, to convert a millimeter to a millimeter. But if you're wanting to convert millimeters squared to centimeters squared, you have to divide by 10 twice. If you're going from centimeters squared to millimeters squared, then you'd have to divide by 10. You would have to multiply by 10 because you're going from a big unit to a small unit. You'd have to multiply by 10 twice. So let me write that down for you. I'm sorry if I'm confusing you there. So from centimeters to millimeters squared, if you were just converting a centimeter to a millimeter, you're going from a bigger unit to a smaller unit, so you would normally just multiply by 10. You'd multiply by 10 ordinarily, but because we've got centimeters squared and we want millimeters squared, you have to times by 10 twice. So you'd go times by 10 times by 10. And just like over here, if you go times by 10 and you times by 10 again, that's exactly the same as just multiplying by 10 squared, or 100. Okay, so please, if ever you ask to convert units, don't just take your answer. Say, for example, you've got a value of 2,500 centimeters squared. Do not ever just multiply by 10 and write it as 250,000 millimeters squared. It won't be that. You have to do it by 10 twice, because 2,500 times 10 would just give you 25,000, and obviously 25,000 is very different to 250,000. So I hope you see the difference. I would like you to pause the video, and I want you to please do the rectangle and the triangle, convert the centimeter squared answer that we got into meters squared and millimeters squared. So what I'm saying is you're going to do that, 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 and that. Once you've done that, then you can start with the next video, and I will go through it with you. Okay, thank you.